Thank you all for being here. I want to first thank my House colleagues and co-primes, Representatives Samuelson and Gillen, who have joined us. I also want to acknowledge our partners on the legislation, Common Cause, the League of Women Voters, Committee of 70, and of course, Fair Districts. In short, you'll get to hear from all these individuals. So, I'm Senator Tim. I represent the 26th District, which includes parts of Delaware County, and home to the famous Goofy Kicking Donald gerrymandered congressional district from 2012 to 2018. My hometown of Swarthmore was actually in the armpit of Goofy. So as a result of an opaque partisan gerrymandering from 2010, that should never have happened. Pennsylvania voters want fair districts, and I stand here before you today advocating for myself and on behalf of the constituents I serve. We want and we deserve fair and equitable representation in our democracy. We all know how the process of redistricting should work. For far too long, Pennsylvanians have watched as political maps were drawn behind closed doors by those who stand to gain the most from them. This has eroded trust in our democracy and left people, especially those who are already marginalized, feeling underrepresented. This commission will be a major step forward in ensuring that the maps are drawn for the people, not for the politicians. That's why I proudly support Senate Bill 131 and House Bill 31, calling for a constitutional amendment to take back the process for the people. This legislation prioritizes genuine commission independence, equal access to data, public involvement, and clear mapping criteria. These provisions are crucial to ensuring that district lines are fairly drawn and without partisan bias. This legislation prioritizes citizens over politicians, and it prioritizes participatory democracy over backroom dealing. This legislation represents the best of our democracy and puts our noble ideals over our worst instincts. This issue transcends party lines, and Pennsylvania voters overwhelmingly support fair districts. This legislation has a duty to listen to our voters' voices. Our parties need to come together after too many tumultuous years of hyper-partisan politics and realize that an independent, citizen-driven, and more scientific redistricting process will cut the dysfunction. We need to put our country, our state, and our citizens over ourselves. I stand with Fair Districts PA and my colleagues who are before you today, urging this legislature to support this legislation. Let's put the interests of the people above partisan politics and ensure that every voter's voice is heard. With that, I'd like to bring up Representative Steve Samuelson.
Thank you, Senator Kearny, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm Steve Samuelson from Bethlehem in the Lehigh Valley, and I'm proud to sponsor this legislation, House Bill 31. And I really appreciate my colleague, Representative Mark Gillen of Berks County. This is a bipartisan bill that we seek to advance in the House of Representatives. I do want to also acknowledge and appreciate the support and the leadership of Common Cause, Committee of 70, League of Women Voters, and Fair Districts Pennsylvania, which I believe is the largest grassroots movement that I have seen in Pennsylvania in my time in the legislature. Just consider this, they have a petition that has been signed by more than 102,000 citizens all across Pennsylvania asking and seeking and demanding that we have an independent redistricting commission in Pennsylvania. The bill that we seek to advance in the 2025 and 2027 legislative session would create that independent commission. It would include representatives from both parties. There would be 4 Democrats on the commission. There would be 4 Republicans on the commission. There would be 3 members of the commission not affiliated with either party. And with that bipartisan commission, we have set out a nonpartisan process to create legislative districts for Congress, for the state Senate, and the state House in the future. We picked the number House Bill 31 because the next time that that we have redistricting in Pennsylvania is 2031, and the next time that we should have an independent redistricting commission is 2031. But we're not talking about just the short term. Having an independent commission would benefit the citizens of Pennsylvania and the communities of Pennsylvania in 2041 and 2051 and 2061 and so on. There are other states that are doing redistricting right now with independent commissions, and Pennsylvania should join those ranks. The citizens of Pennsylvania believe that we should have redistricting process that creates districts that are compact, districts that are contiguous, districts that respect municipal boundaries, districts that respect natural boundaries, districts that aren't drawn favoring one political party or another. The process that we set forward in House Bill 31 and Senate Bill 131, thank you, Senator Kearny, would make sure that we have a lot of transparency. Everything would be on a website, everything would be public at every step of the process, starting in the year 2030 and going through the final map in 2031. And so the citizens could participate in many ways, including, we're requiring 16 public hearings. We've had public hearings in the past, sometimes. We've had other times where there have been no public hearings. We want to make sure it's in the Pennsylvania Constitution that there are public hearings every single time. And this legislation says there should be 8 public hearings all over the state before the maps are drawn, and then 8 more public hearings all over the state after the preliminary maps are out and before the final maps take effect. So we believe the process that's set forward in House Bill 31 and Senate Bill 131 is a truly transparent process to have an independent commission for the citizens of Pennsylvania, for the communities of Pennsylvania, and to benefit our state for decades to come. It's now my honor to introduce my colleague, Representative Mark Gillen of Berks County.
Thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate that. I was minding my own business one day. I was driving down Route 10 in Berks County, and I was on a date with my wife. When you have 5 daughters, you occasionally need to get out and have a date with your wife. And I got a phone call, and it was late into the evening, and I saw that a leader who's no longer in this building had contacted me, and I said to my wife, I said, as a very young legislator, I said, this is either going to be really good or really bad into the evening. And he called to talk to me about the maps that had been drawn and involved the 7th Congressional District, which I think we have likened to cartoon characters. I try to make it easy on myself since I don't know that many cartoon characters. I just call the map Goofy, all right? And it was Goofy. And I happened to have the map with me in my back pocket, my very large back pocket. Yeah, where did that come from? And it doesn't matter. When I looked at the map, I said, well, which side is up? Okay? And it really didn't matter which side was up, because it was Goofy, no matter how you looked at it. And I was told that, oh, this is our map. And that there was a rumor that you were not voting for our map. And I said, well, I'm sorry that rumor's out there. And there was a bit of relief on the other side of the phone. And I said, it's not a rumor. Under no circumstance will I be voting for a map that looks like this. And neither would my 5-year-old daughter be voting for a map that looks like that. A little amplification, if I could, but let me finish the drive. And I said to my wife after the conversation, I said, as you could hear, I said it was either going to be really good or really bad. I think it just turned out bad because I was told that if I did not vote for the map, there would be consequences for me. And I said, you can have my parking spot in the middle of the Susquehanna River, okay? My office can now be in the parking garage. Under no circumstance will I be voting for a map that looks like that, and I don't really care who it favors. It's not my map. Senator, I don't know, you probably have seen the history of the 7th Congressional District in terms of what the maps used to look like, and now we're going back to the 1950s. You would, except for somebody got a little creative around 2002, no time to get into that, but besides, they were relatively compact, and could I amplify on what my good friend the representative said about principles for map making? Don't violate communities of interest. My map now is 62% change from what it was a couple years ago. And guess what? I love representing a new group of people, but many of those people feel disenfranchised. Can I talk at a personal level just for a minute? They share some very intimate information with our office staff. They trust us. And being a state representative and handling people's sensitive information, sensitive data, very particular problems, sometimes involving family situations, they enjoyed the continuity, and there was no good reason why 62% of the district had to be changed when there was a de minimis count increase in the Pennsylvania census. So here you have it from 1952 until we got to Goofy. So what is the goal here? I'm not interested in anything favorable developing in terms of my map. I don't want to be involved in my own map. Honestly, I don't want to see any political party benefited. And as I issued a cautionary note relative to what was going on back 14 years ago, I said, you know, there's going to be a power structure change at some point. And would you be comfortable if this was handed to us? I'm not going to do that to anybody, regardless of what their political party or affiliation is. I'm not interested in politicians favoring other politicians, nor disfavoring other politicians. The map should not offend the eye. Let's just be real simple about this. It should not offend the eye. And I took this map, had a group of professional friends that was over for one of my daughter's birthday parties. There was a couple doctors, a nurse, a lawyer. I pulled the map out, and I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to use you folks in a little case study here. I didn't tell them what it was. I said, what do you think of this map that was just drawn? One of them was pretty astute. He goes, what do you got here, Gillen, a focus group going? I go, absolutely right. I don't even have to pay for it. And every single one of those, you can only guess which political party they may have been affiliated with, some of my close personal friends, but it really didn't matter because the map offended every single person that was in that room. And maps like the one that we just saw, the Goofy map, is indefensible, and this process must be changed. You may agree or disagree with some of the particulars in this bill. We can have that debate. And whenever you have a major legislative product, guess what? There's a lot of voices that are going to be involved on both sides of this room and both sides of the chamber on our side of the House. So let's have that discussion. Let's have that debate. Bring your ideas on board. Amend if you will. But above all else, let common sense prevail at the end of the day. From Common Cause, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Philip Hensley Robin.
Thank you, Representative Gillen. Thank you, Representative Samuelson. And thank you, Senator Kearny, all for your leadership on this issue. Good morning. My name is Philip Hensley Robin. I'm so excited to be here today representing Common Cause Pennsylvania's members and supporters across the Commonwealth. Common Cause is a national leader on fair representation and fair redistricting. We have proudly championed independent commissions like the one in this bill for 2 decades now. That's because in a strong and healthy democracy, voters choose our representatives. But today we see too many power-hungry politicians draw gerrymandered maps to silence voters. We're here with you today because the General Assembly must act now. Some of you may be wondering, why are we here 6 years before redistricting has to happen in 2031? The General Assembly must act now, this year, this session. Amending our state constitution requires passing this amendment through 2 different sessions of the legislature before we can go to the people for a vote. In order for an independent commission to be in place by 2031, in order to have fair districts guaranteed by 2031, we need to pass House Bill 31, this session and next session. We need to pass Senate Bill 131, this session and next session. We need to pass the Fair Districts Amendment because every voter has the right to fair elections for what we care about most, for quality jobs, for affordable health care, for a clean environment, and so much more. That's why we're seeing we, the people, take back our elections and win powerful reforms at the state and local level using this model. Common Cause has proudly championed independent redistricting commissions from coast to coast. States like Michigan, Colorado, Arizona, cities like Syracuse, New York, Los Angeles, California have all implemented independent redistricting commissions. And one common denominator stands out across them all. They work. They give people a real voice in the future of our cities and our states, in the direction of our country. That's why we're so excited to make Pennsylvania the next state to put power where it belongs, in the hands of the people. Last year, my colleagues in Minnesota were able to bring an end to prison gerrymandering, an unfair practice happening in too many states. And we're excited to build off that victory and make Pennsylvania the first place in the nation to ban prison gerrymandering in our state constitution. Now we know this fight is going to be a marathon, not a sprint, but together we're going to get to the finish line. Once again, thank you, State Senator Kearny, Representative Samuelson, and Gillen. Next, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Amy Widestrom. Amy is the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania and a truly fantastic partner in this work. Thank you, Amy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being with us today, and thank you, Philip, for the introduction. Thank you, Senator Kearny, Representatives Samuelson and Gillen, and for our partners standing alongside us for their important work on the issue that brings us together today. As Philip said, I'm Amy Widestrom. I'm the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, and I'm proud to be here representing the League and our members across the Commonwealth. For over 100 years, the League has been steadfast in our commitment to empowering voters and defending democracy. At the heart of that mission is the pursuit of fair and transparent redistricting and electoral processes designed to expand our electorate and make our democracy more representative. Gerrymandering undermines public trust in the public process and distorts political representation. That's why the League has worked tirelessly to advance reforms. Redistricting has been a priority for the League for a long time because it strikes at the very heart of representative democracy. Indeed, the League helped found Fair Districts PA, and we remain a proud partner of Fair Districts PA. When electoral districts are drawn fairly, they reflect the true diversity of our communities and ensure that elected officials are accountable to the people they serve, not partisan interests. The 2017 court case, the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania versus the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the leadership of organizations and individuals like those standing with us today and others have moved us forward, but we must go further. We cannot count on courts and individuals every 10 years to promote and protect fair and representative districts. A constitutional amendment establishing a citizen-led process will protect maps for generations to come. Today, the League stands in strong support of Senate Bill 131 and House Bill 31 to create an independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. This reform is essential to safeguarding the integrity of our electoral process and to preventing the manipulation of district boundaries for political gain. By placing redistricting power in the hands of citizens, we can foster transparency, accountability, and trust in our democratic process. As we look ahead to the next round of redistricting, the urgency of this reform cannot be overstated. We must act now to secure a fair future for all Pennsylvanians. Establishing a Citizens Commission is not just about drawing better maps. It's about empowering Pennsylvanians to shape their government and to ensure that their voices are truly represented. Together with our partners and the citizens of Pennsylvania, we are committed to creating a redistricting process that is fair, transparent, and reflective of our shared democratic values. Now I'm honored to pass the microphone to Cristella, President and CEO of the Committee of 70, an organization that has championed election integrity for 120 years.
And a proud League of Women Voters member as well. Thank you so much, Senator Kearny, Representatives Gillen and Samuelson, and to our terrific partners here today in this work. The current redistricting process in Pennsylvania remains vulnerable to political influence, which undermines trust in government and can lead to gerrymandered maps that favor partisan interests over people. The Committee of 70 has long been committed to ensuring that elections are free, fair, and representative. Through our Draw the Lines initiative in 2018 through 2022, we engaged thousands of Pennsylvanians in the map drawing process. This project showed us that citizens not only have the ability to create fair maps, but it also ignited a sense of civic engagement and reminded people that they deserve to be involved in shaping how their communities are represented. Thanks to the League of Women Voters versus Pennsylvania case and the work of the former chair of the Legislative Reapportionment Commission, Mark Nordenberg, Pennsylvania's maps improved in the last cycle. But we cannot rely on courts or expect another Mark Nordenberg to protect the fairness of the process in 2030 and beyond. A lasting solution requires structural reform. Establishing an independent, citizen-driven redistricting commission through a constitutional amendment is the key to ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability in future mapmaking. While 2030 may feel far away, and some maybe not far enough away, the timeline for reform is urgent. We must act now to ensure the new process is in place before the next round of redistricting. Fair maps are foundational to a healthy democracy. They foster trust, ensure better representation, and help citizens feel connected to their government. Thank you for your attention to this important issue, and I'm honored to stand with all of you today to advocate for this important change. I'm now thrilled to introduce Carol Kuniholm, the GOAT, Chair of Fair Districts, whose tireless work has been instrumental in our fight for fair maps.
Thank you all for caring about representation in Pennsylvania. And that's what this is about. It's about representation. A growing body of research suggests that gerrymandered voting districts lead to polarization, legislative dysfunction, gridlock, and increasing voter frustration. Repeated surveys show strong support for redistricting reform from all parties and all demographics, reforms that take that pen to draw the maps or the computer program or whatever you're using, takes that out of the hands of politicians and gives it back to unaffiliated or unconcerned or unattached citizens who are not going to benefit from those lines as they're drawn. And I was thinking about Representative Gillen's story about that district. There's been a Name That District going on for a long time, and that one was also named Spin Art, which I think is also a good name for that, because you can spin it in any direction and it never does make sense. So thank you for sharing that. While political leaders may struggle to hold control, voters expect to be heard on this issue. In states without safeguards for a nonpartisan process, years of costly litigation and uncertainty about district lines from session to session to session are fast becoming the norm. Voters will not put up with crazy lines, but that causes litigation that throws everything into uncertainty. That is a challenge for candidates who don't know what the districts are until just before an election begins. It's a huge problem for election officials who are waiting to know where will those lines be, how will they run those elections. And it's a challenge to voters, as districts in some states have changed from session to session in this cycle and are still in some states being litigated. Pennsylvania had the good fortune in 2021 to move from the short list of most gerrymandered states. In fact, our congressional map was, by 5 different metrics, the worst across the country, the worst in 3 of those 5 metrics, and among the worst in 5 of those 5 metrics. No other state was on that worst 5 in all 5 metrics. So we had the good fortune of moving from that short list to a more enviable position among states with responsive, balanced district plans. Now, we might have complaints about how some of that played out. There might still be pieces of those maps that we would like to see different, but we are in a better place than we were. And as you've heard this morning, there is no guarantee of that in the future. Either party could find itself locked out of the legislative landscape for decades to come. Proposed House Bill 31 and Senate Bill 131, numbered to remind us all of the 2031 deadline, incorporate lessons learned from the independent redistricting commissions in use in 2021. Bill language has been proposed and reviewed by national redistricting experts who have studied the successes and failures of multiple redistricting reforms. The bills provide safeguards for commission independence and a transparent public process, and provide prioritized criteria that can prevent confusion and continued litigation. And I will say, we have partners in other states who put forward reforms that kept the legislators involved in choosing commissioners or in approving final maps. New York is one of those states. I spent time with the advocates who worked really hard a decade ago to get a reform in place, only to find it founder, only to find it stall, only to find themselves still in litigation, still having new maps redrawn. Their advice is, do not put up with half measures, because half measures will jade everybody to thinking this solution doesn't really work, and will exhaust reformers and will end to continued litigation, which is what we would like to avoid. Amending the Pennsylvania Constitution is a long, difficult process, far longer and more challenging than in most states. Pennsylvania is one of 24 states that don't allow citizen initiative and referendum, one of just 10 states that require constitutional amendments to pass through 2 consecutive legislative sessions before going on the ballot for a vote, and among just 4 of those that have 2-year legislative sessions. So, the time is short. Delay on this will hurt us all. No one knows who will control the PA House or Senate in 2031. No one knows who will sit in the governor's office or hold the PA Supreme Court majority. No one knows if the U.S. Supreme Court precedent on redistricting litigation will change. So, no one knows who will have the final say in determining Pennsylvania's voting districts from 2031 and beyond if this reform is not enacted soon. What we do know is that when one party uses redistricting to hold control, the partisan divide grows deeper and voters' distrust increases. And we also know there is no guarantee for either party that they will not be shut out completely for the following decade or decades if reform is not passed soon. 2030, to attempt this reform would be way too late. So thank you, Representatives Gillen and Samuelson, and Senator Kearny and Senator Committee, for working together on this important reform. We hope your colleagues will join you quickly for the good of Pennsylvania, its voters, and communities in every part of this great Commonwealth. And thank you all, colleagues, supporters, friends, press, for joining us today on this important issue. And I'll turn it back to Senator Kearny.
Thank you, Carol. It's a very busy day here at the Capitol. I want to thank my House colleagues for coming over. I particularly want to thank my colleague, Senator Carolyn Committa from Chester County, who's been a big supporter of this process moving forward. I think you've heard many reasons here today why now is the time to move this and why we need to be moving forward on this important legislation. It is difficult to pass constitutional amendments in Pennsylvania, so we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. Thank you all for coming.